Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 117 of the North Meet South Web podcast.
Chicka chicka Janet. Hey everybody. Welcome. It is Saturday here. It is Saturday night, and I have got a big you may be able to see the back of my neck, Michael. See how
Oh,
red it is back
is
there?
that sunburn? Have you been
It is
getting
sunburn.
you've been getting my sun?
I have been. I stole it. I stole that sun from Aussie land. It was a beautiful day out today, and my wife decided that she wanted more rock in the rock beds
Mm-hmm.
in the back of our house. And so
So you handed her a
I
shovel and a bag of rocks and said, "See you later."
mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what I didn't do. No, I would not do that. My wife does so much for me. And I was actually gone Tuesday through Thursday at a conference this week for work.
Ah,
So yeah, at the very least I owed her helping with some rock. So
mm.
anyway, I was happy to do it, but it was a lot. I had 2 tons of rock delivered yesterday. So I moved 2 tons of
Oh,
rock today.
by
2
yourself?
tons.
Surely you got some help.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, she helped me. My 11-year-old helped a little bit, but we spread it all out into like a single layer. Like we'd kick off
Mm-hmm.
some, like spread it out onto a tarp, and then power wash it because it was really like muddy, like dirty too.
Mm-hmm.
Power wash it, scoop it into a wheelbarrow, take it in the backyard, dump it out, spread it, and then do it again, over and 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 over again.
Rinse and repeat.
2 tons of it, and
Mm-hmm.
my neck is really red, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful my back is doing okay right now. I was trying to be really intentional and careful about not lifting with my back, but lifting with my legs and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, yeah, it was a good day, but I got some serious sun, and I am tired. I'm
Yeah.
really tired. So
Yeah, hope you kept hydrated because all of that kind of like physical because
mm-hmm.
we are not physical creatures typically, us programmers, and so
Yeah, true.
when we go out and do that kind of stuff, all of a sudden it's very easy to to overwork yourself and
Yeah,
to sort
yeah,
of like get dehydrated, and especially in the sun, doing that kind of stuff. It's just fraught with danger. So I hope you wake up
for
okay
sure.
tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was funny because my one daughter, Sailor is her name. She went and got me a bunch of water today. So she was my water runner. So every little bit I'd say, Sailor, and open the door, Sailor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Daddy. Hey, can you go get me some water? Sure. So she'd go get me a big glass of water.
Nice.
And then when I'd need a refill, Sailor, it sort of became like a joke. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, "You need more water?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay." She go get more water. Yeah, it was fun. So
Very nice.
anyway, yeah, it was a good day. I was actually hoping to get the pool open today as well, but not happening. Did
Not
did
happening.
not happen. So
No, it's
maybe
all right.
tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah. So
Tomorrow's
anyway,
another day. Yeah, we
tomorrow is another day. What's life been going on for you there?
life is quite good. Other than heading into the winter part of the year, which I'm not looking forward to. I don't like the cold, but we've had like those late autumn days where some of them we've been in trackies and jackets and jumpers and stuff like that because it's been cold. And yesterday it was a bit warmer, and today I went outside to take the rubbish out, and it was warm. I'm like, oh, I'm in track pants, and it's still, so it's like in that in between thing, and sleeping is tricky as well because you go to bed and you're hot and you wake
Yeah.
up and it's cold, and you don't know whether you should be putting a like a nightshirt on
Yeah.
or what. So it's just that like weird
Right.
time of year. But we went yesterday. I took Eli to his first footy game because it was
Oh, that's so fun.
we had a twilight game, which meant that I could get him to the game and back home in time for bed because we play a
Nice.
lot of like night games, so it's 7 o'clock Friday,
Because it's
Saturday.
probably been hot out, right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
lets it be a
so
little bit
well,
cooler.
yeah, and like nighttime, it's tricky because it's like he might push to 8 for bedtime, but if the
Yeah.
game starts at 7, we're not finished till 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Right,
like too
right.
much, and especially with like taking him to his first game, there's thousands of people there, and it's noisy and all of that kind of stuff. So um, we've got Anzac Day this weekend, so it's a long weekend, and so as part of the pre-match, they do the Anzac observance, and they go through, have the armed forces come out, and we do the ode of remembrance and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good opportunity for him not only to get to his first game, but to kind of experience a bit of that Anzac tradition. Now that he's a bit older, and like they talked about it at childcare this week, so he kind of had a bit of a understanding of what was going on. but because of that, we planned to get to the game a bit earlier and make sure that we were there for all of that pre-match stuff. And so I was very prepared for Eli to
Mm-hmm.
have like had enough come the start of the
Yeah,
game
sure.
and want to go home.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Set good expectations for yourself. Yeah.
but he was just a little champ yesterday.
That's
He
awesome.
was a bit like,
That's awesome.
I was worried that because he gets overwhelmed with crowds,
Yeah, sure.
because there's a lot of people and a lot of noise, but he was like straight through the turnstiles into the ground. He didn't have any issues with all of the people there. He came down to his seat, and because we sit right at the front on the fence, so it's not like he had people in front of him to contest with.
Sure.
He was like the person in front. So that was really good. And there was a couple of moments early on where they had, they play music, so it's quite loud. And so the crowd get into it. And there were a few times where he was covering his ears because he was too loud for him.
Yeah.
And they set
Yeah.
off some pyrotechnics when the team comes into the stadium. So I said, like, those black boxes over there, they're going to blow up. You're going to see some fireworks. So just so he was prepared for it. But it was good. He's kind of like 5 or 6 weeks into using the potty now, so we're still in that treacherous territory of like, will he let us know in time
Yep.
that he
Yeah.
needs to go? And like, it's not
Oh
like we're
man.
going from like the lounge room to the toilet at home. We have to run up the
Right.
stairs from like the front
Exactly.
up, and then you have to make sure that there's get a toilet that's free.
Wow.
And
Brave man. Brave man.
so he was really good. He survived all of that. He had the footy food. We've got a book called Why I Love Footy. And so we've been reading that for the
That's
last week or
hilarious.
so, just to kind of like get him an understanding of what was happening. And, so we went through and I just reminding him, like, remember this bit from the book. We're doing this bit from the book. He was super pumped with the mascot. By the end of the game, he's like, I don't want to go home because
Oh, dude, that is awesome.
they
Dude,
have
that's like it could literally does sounds like it couldn't have gone any better.
it was 4 hours, like everything that I had anticipated that would be against us in terms of like him wanting to be there and enjoying the experience. And fortunately our team turned up this week. Like we've lost our first 5 games and they've been like spectacular losses in terms of like just getting belted. So the
Destroyed.
team turned
Yeah.
up, like we won by 12 goals. So it was a convincing win against a very terrible opposition. So and he got up at the end of his own
Nice.
quarter, and he was like cheering when the team song came on, and they hand out like signed footballs at the end of the game, and one of the players came and it was like making a beeline straight for us. I'm like, Eli, you're gonna get a footy here. This is great. And he was like, I don't want a footy, and he buried his head in my shoulder. And the player went, okay, I'm going over there. So he missed out
Oh
on the
no.
sign ball, but they let everyone onto the field after the game last night, and they had a whole bunch of free footies to give out. So he got himself a footy, and yeah, he just didn't want to go home. So, and then we got home, it was around 7:38, and straight to bed. Not
Good man.
It was good.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm super stoked for you
And he's
guys.
like,
You got to do that.
when are we going
That's so
again?
cool.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
if he's asking to go again, then he's had an
Definitely.
enjoyable. Like he didn't watch the game. He had no interest really in what was going on the ground. Like he's never really watched a game on TV because, like I said, they're at night, so he doesn't really see them anyway. But
Sure.
it was good. It was positive.
Maybe as he
experience.
gets a little bit older though. Yeah, exactly. That's
Mm.
really what you want. That's
Yeah.
what you want right now. It's just kind of fun experiences. I'm coaching my daughter's basketball team right now. They're like 6-year-olds, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're just kind of going for fun right now,
Mm-hmm.
Just want them to have a good experience as they come back to the game. That's awesome though. Hey, so we've got a couple things we wanted to talk about today.
Vim.
We've been
No
working
Vim. Tell
on the
everyone.
Vim stuff. Yeah, so basically it's on me, right? I mean, I have been using Vim more, a lot more actually. It's been really enjoyable. I've loved using it.
Awesome.
And so I feel like I'm getting better at it. I feel like I'm getting faster at it, and I feel like I'm learning more every day. So using it, loving it. So mission accomplished. I'm on the path, right? I've been
Yeah.
looking at the videos that you threw in our show notes, and like been watching some of those videos, like T Pope and some of those other guys, and so it's been really, really fun. I'm enjoying myself, so that's cool. But yeah, like in the last 2 weeks, I haven't done as much homework. And so I didn't have a lot of questions. So I figured we would kind of take a quick break from the Vim stuff, and maybe we can come back to it in another episode. But I had a particularly, I have this question that's been sort of stumping me for a bit, and I don't have a good answer for it. So I figured maybe we could just talk it through, and you might have some interesting ideas to throw at this.
Can I just quickly circle back onto Vim? I had
Yeah,
to do
sure.
a screen share with a couple of my teammates at work on Friday just to go through like we had some N+1 issues. And
Oh,
I
okay, yeah,
identified them and I said, we got to get this done. And the work got scheduled. And so I sat down with them to sort of go through where we're at with the code and like what's currently happening and where it's happening and what we're trying to achieve in terms of like fixing that issue for, long-term scalability and efficiency and all that kind of stuff. And I was talking for like an hour as we went through and we tried to figure out exactly where the issue crept in and how we could, get around it and things like that. And about three quarters of an hour into this, they're like, "What's your editor? That looks super cool." And I'm like, "Oh man." I think, and I find like people people may not know Vim, but when they see someone who knows how to use it, they're always like when people see me and they're always kind of like amazed by the usage of it. But I'm like, I hope they took something away from this beyond just I have a pretty editor.
yeah, yeah. Like there's more to it than just the skin on the outside of it,
Yeah,
right? Like it's all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that makes it
yeah,
really usable and interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's
I
like
think
I
from
said,
an
it's been fun.
I think from an observation point of view, it's possibly not the best tool. Just because like the idea is that you do everything from the keyboard, and
Sure.
so when I'm running around and I'm mashing keys and like things are just opening and appearing and splits are opening here and there and we're jumping between files and things like that, it's not as obvious for an observer who's like not used to Vim. Whereas something like VS Code or PHP Storm, where you have the UI and the expectation is that you're going to click around a bit to open things up and make it sort of obvious, um, which is something that kind of I had to stop and think about in terms of like if I'm going to do videos, or content, like I don't think it's enough to just do video. You really need to explain it and you really need to kind of dig in a little bit in terms of what you're doing, and maybe like some written stuff to go along with it. So just gave me
Sure.
food for thought. But I
Yeah.
just that
Yeah,
that
it's a
kind
good
of a
point.
reaction is quite common. Like doesn't matter what you post. Like Wilbur Powery messaged me during the week after I tweeted some stuff out, and he's like, "That's all nice and all, but what's your Vim setup?"
No, yeah, exactly. Exactly. What editor is that? Yeah,
Mm,
that's what Jeffrey Way put something together, right? Because it was like literally everybody'd watch a video, and then the first comment was always, "Yeah, what's that edit? What's that theme? What's that font? Like, what color
mm,
scheme is that you're
mm-hmm.
using?" It's just like okay, and so he finally just put something out there, like here's what I'm using. So yeah. Okay, so let me set up the context here. So we've got these. Maybe you saw David Hemphill's little board that he has. Have you seen that? What's that called? It's like I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. It's a little like LED board. He
Right.
has
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
whip on it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember what that's called. What is this awesome, cool little LED board that he has? I think Matt Stauffer has one too, which
Mm-hmm.
they're fun. But at work, we actually have now 3 of these things. They're called Vesta boards, and oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, they are so freaking cool. You should go look it up right now. And so what it is it's an analog board, and there are like I think 6 or 7 different colors on it, and then every character, well not every all 26 letters of the English alphabet,
Mm.
and then some characters and stuff too. And what it does is like if you've ever been to like maybe an old train station or something, and like a new
Mm.
train is coming in, it does
And
that
then it
like
flips. Yep. Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
and it flips down, and then it shows like the train is coming in at this time or whatever, right? So basically, it's a programmable panel. It's not an LED. It's analog little
Mm-hmm.
flippers, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's amazingly cool. It's so fun when you send a message to it and it flips through all of the stuff and then whatever. And so we have one at our north location and 2 at our south locations,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all kind of synced together, which is really cool. But what we want to do is we want to utilize them so that they're all synced together, but then we can do like scheduled announcements and things like that, right?
Hang on.
So we have all sorts of yeah, you got it. What?
I'm like, this is wild. I wonder if I could get one of these. $4,150. Maybe not.
Oh yeah, they're not cheap. They're not cheap. When we got them, I think the first one we got was like 2,500.
Mm.
And there actually is a place where you can get them cheaper. I'll tell you though, when we were first looking these things up, they were like 15,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Like the ones that we found, like this was the most economical one we could
Mm-hmm.
find. And I think the first one we bought was like 2,500, and that was like 2 years ago, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And we were on like the waiting list 2 years ago, and we finally got it like a year ago. So anyway, they're super fun. It's got an API and you can push to it and all that good stuff, right? Okay, so that being said, the thing I'm sort of struggling with is this schedule. Now, if you just had like a schedule, it's super easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have like you schedule them all out, and that's the schedule for the day. And when the time arrives, you push it to the API, and you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all well and good. And that does happen. So like at the beginning of the day, I know all the birthdays and anniversaries for any employees that happen today. And so what I can do is I can say I'm going to change this every 30 minutes, and I am going to take all of the birthdays and anniversaries that are happening today, and I will basically loop over them, and every 30 minutes I will schedule one of them throughout the day, right? So on the 30-minute mark, on the 30-minute and on the hour, it will switch. Fine. Okay, great. Those are scheduled announcements. I know when those are going to happen. I can create those in advance, and then I just schedule them. So right now, sort of what that looks like is I have a database table called Vesta Board announcement. And the announcement that you're pushing in actually is an array. It's an array of 6 22 character long or 22 value long arrays. So imagine like nested array. You have array, and then you have 22, another array with 22 characters, 22 characters, 22 characters, 22 characters, 6 times, right? So an array of arrays, it basically makes up this grid. It's each number represents one of the pixels, if you will, on the Vesta board, right? And so if you want to do anything other than just plain text, if you want to decorate it with not with letters, with colors and things like that, it can get a little bit complex. So we have a class called like birthday announcement or anniversary announcement or whatever, and it basically will handle creating that 6 by 22 grid that will then get pushed to the Vesta board. So that's a Vesta board announcement. It's a model, right? And it's a database record. And then we have a Vesta board schedule, right? And the Vesta board schedule points to one of the Vesta board announcements, right? And then it gives it a time that it needs to be displayed at. So simple enough, right? Then we just have a scheduler that looks every minute and says, is there something that's scheduled to run this minute? And if the answer is yes, then it pushes it out. And if it's no, then it doesn't push anything out. Simple. No problem, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, excellent. So that right now is good, not a problem. The other thing that I have, though, is I have this need for something like a real-time announcement. So with a real-time announcement, I know what the content will be, but I don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So if I have a real-time announcement, like an example of that would be something like a big payment, like somebody who's on our production floor gets a big payment in the door, right? Let's say something greater than $15,000. We right now we celebrate that in a couple different ways. We have this like light show thing that happens in the production bay, which is hilarious. We literally have all these LED strips around like these clouds, when I say clouds, they're like drop ceiling sort of like squares that are out there for like sound control, but we lined them all with LED lights, and then we have speakers in the ceilings. We play this little light music show. It's hilarious. So that's cool, but the rest of the company has no clue that it's happening. So what we're going to do is push them to the Vesta boards. Right?
Okay. Yep.
And so with those, I have to push that in at the time of the announcement, but I really only want that thing to show for like, I don't know, like a couple minutes maybe or something like that.
Sure.
And then I want it to kind of like go back to the previous announcement, I think. You know what I mean? And so that's the challenge. Like making the real-time announcement is pretty simple, right? If I want to do that, I can just say, okay, create a new Vesta board announcement, and then once you do that, go ahead and schedule it for the next minute, right? And if I do that, then it'll just, when the next minute comes up, it'll go ahead and do that. And then it's the question sort of becomes, how do I get back to the previous announcement, right? So let's tackle that one. Let's just use that as like a concrete example. So what would your approach be? I know I've given you exactly like 2 seconds to think about it, but that's kind of like, that's the challenge. So where's your head go immediately?
So my first thought would be with that, because you know what's currently being displayed, right?
I guess I don't really, honestly. I mean, I could by just putting like an active flag or a currently showing flag on
Mm.
the particular record. So that
Mm.
might work. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could put an active flag there, or you could like pick the most recent one, like order it by created at, find the first one, like
Sure.
less
Yeah.
than now.
Yep.
Um, when you pop the next one, which is your like known text but unknown schedule, you could find the current one, kind of link the two together so that you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then dispatch a job or something, in five
There you
minutes
go.
or 10 minutes, like go and display this other thing, and
Yeah.
then because you know what was present at the time, so you can find that, attach it, like,
Find it
and
first.
and you
Yep.
don't even have to like, it can be ephemeral in insofar as like just find what the thing
It,
is that is currently
yeah.
being shown, display the new thing, and then dispatch a job in, like, say, run this in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whenever, to then display the previous whatever that message was.
Yeah. And I
Um,
guess that is sort of the deal is like, I could just use, so that's sort of like the struggle that I'm at is I'm like, okay, do I care that the actual Vesta board schedule is accurate, or am I okay with just using a queued job to push something on there?
mm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you could at the time of pushing that like announcement, insert another record into the Vesta board schedule that's
uh-huh.
like a
Yeah.
duplicate, like replicate the previous one, and then just update the schedule time, and that way
Yep.
you've got that continuous history.
Yep.
If you care about having the history, then yeah, do that. Just grab that record replicator, update the schedule time, and then save it back to the database, and that'll take care of that. And that way you've got also the historical tracking of every single message that was sent. Where if you go with the job route, um, obviously we'll lose. There will have been another message that was displayed. You just won't know that historically.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's
Exactly.
that's another approach to do it, I suppose.
So actually, yeah. So keeping so like the two approaches that we've talked about then is to just continue to use the Vesta board schedule and essentially make that be true to what you want to happen, and then
Mm-hmm.
don't use a job to do it. Basically, just push it on immediately as soon as you know what time it needs to go on there, and then let the scheduler that's going to run every minute control what's going to get picked up and sent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. Okay, that works. That works. Or the other option is forget the Vesta board schedule. That's only going to be for scheduled announcements.
Mm-hmm.
And instead just use a queued job to push it on there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So here I think is the challenge. So if I use a queued job, my concern is collisions.
Mm-hmm.
So if like there is a payment announcement that comes in at the hour mark,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like which one
Yeah, you don't
runs,
want.
or
Yeah.
does it? I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? That's sort of like the why I wanted to do the scheduled table,
Mm-hmm.
is because I want to be able to make sure that there's no collisions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So like even if that's the case, even if there is a queue job that runs at that time, so it's still so like even if I don't do that, even if I just use the Vesta board schedule, it's still possible that I could have two jobs that are scheduled for the same time, for the same minute. That is
Yeah.
still possible,
Yeah. So
right?
one would fire, it would update the thing, and then it would update again straight away.
Yes, right. So what I'm doing right now is I'm saying every minute when you check, I'm saying give me any that are scheduled to run right now, and give me the first. Only give me the first.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought I had about that was if I have a shown at timestamp,
Mm-hmm.
I could do something like if there are multiple announcements to be shown, they would just be shown like one shows 1 minute and then the next one shows the next minute. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
like if I pushed on like 10 announcements at the same time, it would just show an announcement for a minute and then it would say grab all the ones that are supposed to show still. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not even saying shown at this minute. It's just saying grab me any that the show at time is previous to now and the shown at time is null,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it would just basically give me a stack of them, and I'd say pop off the first one and display it. And then the next minute it's going to say pop off the first one, display it, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
could have this stack where it's I guess that's going to be like a first in, first out sort of deal.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
Yeah. So I could do that. Okay, so that would work. That would work.
yeah. I mean, it depends on the volume of notifications. If you're gonna have like lots, you may never get through all of them.
That's true. But we're not gonna, yeah, right. We shouldn't have that many.
Like
Yeah.
if it's, if you've got one that comes in at the top of the hour, and then at 1 minute past you've got two, and then at 3 you've got nothing, at 4, you know, you will eventually catch up. But if you get like 5
Yeah.
that comes in with a 3 minute period, you might, I mean, it like I said, it's something to think about, but it doesn't sound like you've got the volume where that matters. Um,
That's true.
it
Yeah.
also depends on how real time you want things to be. You could say change your scheduled task from running every minute to running every 15 minutes.
Then
And then
you'd only have one announcement every 15 minutes. Yeah.
well, no, because then what you could do is you could find everything from the preceding 15-minute block. And then you could figure out like, okay, I've got 5. So you just divide however many you've got,
Okay.
by 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you say, I've got 15 minutes. I've got 3 that I need to display. So each one displays for 5 minutes.
That's a cool way to do it. That seems really interesting.
And that way,
Because that way, instead of instead of like having a crap ton of them, you'd basically just delay it for 15 minutes, and you'd say, I'm not going to show anything for the 15 minutes, but when I get ready to do it, I'm going to say, give me whatever needed to display in the last 15 minutes,
and then
display them in
schedule
the next,
display of,
schedule them
over the
out.
next 15 minutes.
Interesting.
Right.
That's interesting.
And that was something that we did when I was at Superloop, was we would run at midnight a task that would then schedule everything that we needed to do, because there was like requirements around when you could contact a customer. Like you can't contact them before 8 a.m. or whatever it was. But 8 a.m. varies depending on whether you're in Western Australia or, depending on what side of the country you're on. So we ran the task at midnight, sorry, but we scheduled all of the work to commence from 8 a.m. in the respective records time zone, so that we could space that. So it's easy enough to do it in the context of Laravel. Now, in that scenario, we would just be like, okay, all of the ones in Perth do at 8 a.m. Perth time, all of the ones at Sydney do at 8 a.m. And then like all that got kind of funneled through the queue, and then the queue kind of managed when that was happening. But in this one, you want to say, okay, I've got X, and I want to and then you just throw them on the queue, and then they just get displayed, or however you want to handle that, to then say, okay, I need to show each of these 3 messages for 5 minutes. So you say, okay, pop this one now. Then the next one you go, okay, it's like whatever the iterator is, for I, and I is less than whatever.
Yeah.
And then, okay, do one at 0, one at 5, one at 10 kind of thing. And then so the first one gets done. And then that kind of gives you the ability, if something comes in between them, to kind of like, okay, so this one was supposed to show for 5 minutes, but it only showed for 3 minutes because one came in it was supposed to show for 5, but it only got 3 because one came in at the 3-minute mark, and then that showed for 2 minutes, and then it got replaced by the next one. So there's obviously some variability there in terms of what you predict at the start of the 15 minutes may not eventuate through the end of it, but it gives you the ability to at least schedule some even stuff in there. And then if you need to put in the the unknown time, the real-time announcements, then they can kind of just appear whenever. And
exactly.
And real-time announcements you could either push live, just send the API
like
request
right
directly, or you could have a separate task that is responsible for handling real-time announcements only that runs every minute.
Yeah. You could. I mean, you even could. You could even have that one that's still running every minute, but then you have so that's the check to see if there's a schedule announcement available. But then you could also have one that you're talking about, which basically says, schedule the next 15 minutes of announcements, of scheduled announcements, essentially.
Yep.
Which is like, see what's available in the queue that needs to go. So you'd have another table that's like just a queue sitting there waiting for what needs to go out still, right? So instead of it getting pushed straight onto the schedule, it's going to get it pushed into a queued for schedule.
Mm-hmm.
and it's just going to sit there until the push queued item to schedule command runs, and then it says, okay, how many do I have available to push through right now? I
Mm-hmm.
have 3. Okay, show one every 5 minutes for the next 15 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. That's cool. I like that. Okay. All right, awesome. So then I also had one other one, which is um
The batch announcements.
uh yeah, batch announcements, but I think this maybe solves that still, even like the way we've discussed it. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be like let's say instead of just a real-time announcement for the big payments, let's say that um every hour on the 15-minute mark, I'm going to display all of the payments that are over $15,000 aggregate, like for the day. So like I'm gonna, if somebody got a $15,000 payment at 8 o'clock, at 8:15, I'm gonna show that one.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody got one at 8:45 and 8:50, at 9:15, I'm gonna show all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody gets another one at 10 o'clock. At 10:15, I'm gonna show all 4 of them just in a row, like
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, a minute each.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have with those batch announcements is like I know what time I want to run them,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what the content is really until I get to it, right? So maybe a better example too is a like so let's just say it's what's the total number of dollars collected for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't know that in advance.
No.
I can't schedule that in the only thing I could schedule is it'd be like a type of announcement, I suppose, where like I could put it on the schedule, but it's not going to point to a record that already exists because it
Right.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's like I either have to have a separate job that runs at that time that then pushes the announcement to the board, which probably is the easiest way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I had a job that said run every hour on the 15-minute mark and push 4 new scheduled announcements onto the board, that would probably be the easiest way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
you could dispatch like a type of job, and the job itself would be responsible for then pulling out what it needs to
And then pushing them
to
onto
calculate
the
it, and then
schedule.
pushing
Yeah.
your regular job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would work too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So
I
I
think
think
that
like
works.
the batch announcements thing kind of gets fixed up if you take that like approach where you're just gonna schedule out the next 15 minutes worth of announcements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that kind of, I think if you tie them together, if some announcements should be ephemeral, like display this thing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go
Yeah.
back to whatever the first one was,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd get some
Yep.
overlap. If you've got 4, you know that at minute 4, you need to then go and find that first announcement that was scheduled to display from minute 0 to minute 5, so that it gets another minute until
Yeah.
the next. So you'll need to fill the gap. But yeah, I think like those things kind of then sort themselves out, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like that. I like it. Okay. That was all the stuff I had for that. So that's just I'm really happy to have it working. The other thing I had to figure out was, so the interface is actually pretty cool that they have. So
Mm-hmm.
on the web, they just give you this. If you just go to web.vestaboard.com,
Mm-hmm.
you can play around with it. You can actually sign up for it and create like a test board, and then you can like make your own little Vesta board displays. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you can just share it on a website, like embed an iframe,
Mm-hmm.
and you can push to it. It's kind of cool. So like if you have like a TV that you wanted to push this to rather than an actual physical board,
Yeah.
you could have the TV point to the URL and it would just display the board on the TV. So if you had like a frame or something, right?
You're right. Yeah.
And then you could push, the API endpoint, and then it would just display. It would do all the flipping animation stuff,
Nice.
and then it would display it. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. You can get a feel for like what it looks like and how it works if you just go web.vestaboard.com, and then you can kind of play around with it. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Very nice.
it's been fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, hey, the other thing I think we should talk about is then Ping Me. I know you've been doing a lot of work on that recently. So what's the most recent stuff you've been doing on there?
Yeah. So I had a spate of nights where I had the like I had nothing to watch on TV and I had the motivation and the kids were in bed. So I knuckled down and did some work. As it turns out, one of our customers had asked for this functionality like a year and a half ago, and it just like it never eventuated because we got busy and it was kind of just running and we weren't really doing a whole lot with it. So the main thing that I did was the ability to capture execution output from scheduled tasks. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I love
some
that.
some people when they run their scheduled tasks, like there's some output printed to the screen. So especially if you're scheduling commands, and normally you would run them as artisan, or you could run them as artisan commands on the command line. You might just schedule them to run every 5 minutes, and they might spit some output to the screen. And the way that we were doing things before, well, like we made sure that your task was running, but we had no visibility over what it was doing or anything like that. And so what we did, and like the Laravel prune command, the model prune command is an example of one of those things that like does say, okay, I deleted 1,000 or
Yeah.
deleted whatever. But there was no way of knowing. Like you knew that the task was running, but you didn't know if it was doing anything. And if it's important that you know what it was doing, there was no visibility over that.
Yeah.
And exceptions we were always catching. Like if your task failed, we would get a payload from your application that says, the task has failed, and that would include the exception. But other than storing it, we're never displaying it anywhere. We weren't doing anything with it. So what I built over the Easter weekend was the ability to capture it from your application and then send it up to then ping me and then display it. Like there's just on the execution page, there's now just a little magnifying glass that you click on it and it pops up the thing and it's, the modal and now you can see what the output was. So that was something that
just make sure you don't like output any like passwords or anything stupid like that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be great, right?
So key to this whole thing is that it is opt-in. We've
Sure,
been
exactly.
very
Yeah, it's not going to just capture it automatically.
right.
Yeah,
We've been very very conscious from the beginning, like that this isn't all in terms of monitoring all of your scheduled tasks, and we wanted that experience to be really simple. That you just run the command, and we will figure out all of your commands. We'll send them all up, and then we'll just keep an eye on them. But we're always very conscious, like we don't know what your tasks are doing. We don't see the code of the task. We don't do any of that. So output, really needs to be up to you to decide, do I want to send this so that I can view the output? Because unless you're doing something with it yourself in your scheduler, if you're actively saying with output or then with output or whatever the Laravel commands are, you don't know. But you, like you say, you might very well be pushing some stuff out in terms of credentials or whatever else. So, it's entirely up to you if you want to opt into it. And if you're happy with, then ping me like we just store it and display it. So it's a handy feature for that kind of thing. If you want to see like what's happening in your tasks and you don't want to have like a separate solution, you don't want to have to configure your, per task, what you want to do with all the output and things like that. So we can now just do that. So as part of like version 3 of the client package that we shipped back when Laravel 9 came out, I'd put this in because that gave us Laravel 8, which gave us some niceties around named arguments and things like that. So it was easier to kind of configure. So there's now then ping me option that you can just tack onto any of your scheduled commands or scheduled tasks, and you can configure your task settings. So you can configure your allowed runtimes, your grace times, your notification thresholds. Like this thing can fail up to 3 times before I need to know about it, kind of thing. So all of that is now configurable alongside your application schedule. And that means like you don't have to go into the UI and do it. And we had this issue before where if you synced your tasks, like you changed the schedule or something like that, it would remove the task, but then it would go back to the defaults for those settings. So now that you can control them alongside your task schedules themselves, they're always kept up to date, and you can change them quite easily. So that was another thing that we put in. You can set project defaults. Like if you know that all of your tasks are going to take at least a minute to run. I have lost Jake. Come back. Oh, he's back. If
Hey, sorry, I don't know if
yeah, I don't know if it's your end or
it
mine, but
keeps.
it's some jankiness.
I'm not sure exactly.
Mm. We'll we'll
Anyway,
we'll persevere. Yeah, so we can set project level defaults for all of those settings now. So if you know that all of your tasks are going to take at least a minute and a half to run, you can say, okay, well, for my project, I want the default allowed runtime to be 2 minutes, and that'll just take precedence for everything. So we got that in, and shipped. And so those are like a couple of customer facing features that we've pushed out, which is good. The other thing that I'm working on at the moment is to also display that exception output. So exceptions, as I discovered this week, exceptions and like the failed task event that comes from then ping me are interesting in terms of because of the way that the task is run in sort of a symphony process, it doesn't bubble up into the task scheduler itself or into the schedule run command. So it's something that you need to sort of be mindful of. But if there is an exception, like if you have an undefined property or something like that, those bubble up. But throwing exceptions kind of just like your task just exits normally. So we're putting in the ability to view the exceptions as well, which will be available in the same UI. I'll get that pushed out in a little bit, and there'll be a tweet alongside, I guess, this podcast episode, which will outline all of that stuff. But then we're also including that output in your scheduled task events as well. So if there's output to display, we'll include that in an alert. If there's an exception, we'll include that in an alert. So just give me that more comprehensive stuff in terms of reporting.
Yeah, it's nice because this is the thing that's going to be telling you that it's failing. So instead of having to go elsewhere, you just click in and there it is, right? So it's your one-stop shop for trying to debug exactly what's going on. Yeah.
And that was like the key thing for me putting this feature together was that like we're already telling you that something's wrong, but we don't really want you to then go and look in Papertrail or your log or wherever else to find out what actually happened. We've got the information, so we'll just hand it to you and say now go forth and fix kind of thing. So exceptions are probably a little bit easier because they'll get picked up by Sentry or Honeybadger or whatever you're using for your bug tracking. But it's just good to have it all in one place to kind of link it all together and go from there. So that's something that's done. Just a bit more of a comprehensive solution there. And I've got a few other things that I'm kicking around at the moment. Finally got to finish it. And I did all of this instead of doing the notification channels because no one's really asked for it, even though it's been a feature that we've kind of listed since day one is coming soon. So I want to get that out just so that I can close that 2-year-old issue off and have it done. So some of the work's there. It's just implementing it and actually getting it behaving. So that'll get done.
And the
friggin'
tests.
Yeah. So that'll get done soonish. The other thing that I want to do is kind of revamp how we display executions because it's just a giant paginated list at the moment. So it'd be good to show like a proper timeline, like the task started here. It'll also make it clearer if an alert was raised. Like if, for example, what I see a lot with especially customers who have just signed up is that they'll we'll get the task started and then the tasks by default are allowed to run for 60 seconds. And then they've got a task that runs for like 75 seconds. So, they'll get an email saying your task is failing. And then 15 seconds later, we'll get the finish event and then we'll say, oh, your task is okay again. And this will happen like every time the task runs. And then eventually I get the email. It's like, what the hell? So, and it's like, this is, there's nothing wrong with nping me in this regard. This is exactly what it's meant to do. It's supposed to tell you that your tasks that, that they're not running the way that you expect them to. And, that obviously has cascading issues. Like this thing that runs is taking, a minute and 15 seconds to run, which means the task that was meant to run immediately at the same time is now not running until a minute later. And then, you get this cascading effect of like failing tasks and missing tasks and things like that. So hopefully being able to see within the context of then ping me, here is the start event that we received. Here is where it timed out. Here is where it finished. And here is where we closed the alert. So you can kind of see, I know exactly what happened now. This thing's happening. So that'll just be a little bit more clarity, I think, for those customers to see that. And I've put like just a little one liner in the alert email that's like, did your bug tracker not tell you about this? Like, go and see our FAQ that explains like why this could happen. And like it just goes through that exact scenario that, if your task takes too long to run, then yes, we're going to tell you that there's something wrong with your task because we're expecting it to run for 1 minute and it ran for a minute and a half. So yeah, there's that. And there was something else I was thinking of. Anyway, there's a few things on the boil at the moment in terms of customer features. The other thing that we finally completed, or that I wanted to get done for ages, and I was like umming and ahhing about it, was to migrate from RDS MySQL to Aurora MySQL, which
interesting. Yeah.
we had to wait a long time for that because we were using some MySQL 8 specific features, and Aurora only supported version 5.7. So that came
seriously?
out,
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was only 5.7 compatible up, and it's been MySQL 8 since I want to say September or October last year. And I was going to jump straight on because for us to go from the RDS instance that we're on to like the lowest tier of Aurora was going to cost us the same, but we would have a much more performant, much more scalable database. And so in those scenarios where we get, on the first of the month where everyone's every minute task and hourly task and
exactly.
first of the month report, like when all of those things run at once and we get smashed, then the database can just, scale up and scale down without having any impact on anything else. So the first time I tried to do it, it just took an eternity, like, because you have to set up a read replica. And so AWS will take a snapshot of your existing database while it spins up the Aurora cluster. It will then restore that snapshot or that database onto that, and then it sets up replication, and then it catches up. In most applications, that's fine. In our application, we're talking like, I don't know, tens of thousands of, or even hundreds of thousands of records that could appear between when that snapshot is taken and when the cluster is up and running. And so it just never completed. And I was like, what is going on? This should be fairly straightforward, but it just like, it couldn't keep up. And what it turned out the issue was that because we were using a small database instance, because like most of the time that was fine. We were using 6% CPU. We didn't have any issues with performance or anything like that. And then so when I set up Aurora, it was like small to small, and it didn't want to play the game. It couldn't process that volume of replication backlog fast enough to actually ever spin up. So this time around, what I did was like spin up a DBR5 extra large, like whatever the base like memory optimizer. It had like 16 gig of RAM and 4 CPU cores and stuff like that. So it finished straight away. And that was great. And so as soon as that was finished, I then scaled the instance down. So we're on like a T4G medium, which is like the ARM CPUs, which is supposed to be more efficient. And like it cost us the same now. And so before we had like 600 gig of storage provisioned because we needed the IOPS. Like if we had an influx, we needed the IOPS so that we didn't like tank the server, because if we tank the server, then it never catches up. And then, we run into issues there with like tasks not running and tasks running late, like our own tasks running late because we can't keep up with stuff coming in. Then, we get a backlog and then we're just sending emails to customers needlessly. So, so we had to have like this massively over provisioned disk just to have the capacity in terms of IOPS. And there's no way to scale that down. Like once you have 600 gig of storage provision, you're on 600 gig forever, which means we're paying for 600 gig of storage, but we're using like 10. So now we don't have to worry about disk. There is no disk. Aurora will just scale up as we need it. There's no IOPS. That all just happens. We've got a more performant, more powerful server that's going to last us much longer. Like other than the sporadic issues with IOPS, the T3 small that we had before was perfectly fine. Like we didn't really need anything quicker or more powerful than that. But now we've got multi-zone, or we've still got multi-zone. We had multi-zone before. So we've got multi-zone. We've got all of the scalability boost that Aurora provides us. We've got separate read and write instances as well. So if I want to run some, some report, because we're not using the reader instance in the application, but if I want to run reports, if I want to like smack the database to find out, how many active projects with tasks with alerts we have for customers that have active subscriptions, I can do that knowing that like running that query might lock the database, but it's not going to affect customers. So that's really handy. And then we can just add and remove, like if we want to add another instance somewhere, if we want to put another instance in another availability zone or in another region or whatever, we can kind of do that stuff quite easily, which is really nice. And like it's not costing us any more than it did before, which is the icing on the cake. So
Absolutely. Bonus, double bonus.
I've just been like watching the metrics and things like that so we did that. We set up the Aurora cluster. I then configured then ping me to use the cluster and left the original database kind of running just to see what happened. So we watched that for a couple of days, was happy with that, promoted the replica cluster so that it was like taking on all of the load directly. And it was Friday. So 2 days ago as we record this, I just turned off and deleted the old database. And
nice. It never goes that smoothly, so I'm glad to hear that happened.
Yeah. So, I'd had enough experience in terms of like our database doing weird things. And the camel that broke the straw's back was actually when I added the output field into our execute. So our executions table is our second biggest one, third biggest one behind pings and webhooks, because we track all of those things coming in. So I added this like output null default null column into a table that had 7 or so million records in it, and the replication of that just caused everything to melt down. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and just do this now. So fortunately, I saw it happening. I saw the IOPS kind of tanking on the RDS instance, so I could go. The last time we had database issues, I put in all of these kill switches to like turn off execution checking and task checking and emailing of alerts. And so, if anything gets out of sync or falls behind, or like we've got a heartbeat.
Right, exactly.
So I did that defibrillator so that if the heartbeat falls into the past, then all of the notifications, even if they're already queued up, they just won't send. They'll go, whoop, nothing to see here. And just,
because otherwise it's just sending erroneous stuff. Yeah. So it's like,
you get all of these emails and they'll be, they could be half an hour late or an hour late or whatever else. So
exactly.
I went and I enabled all the kill switches. I let the database catch up, and then I did this fix. So I'm pleased that I'm not, knock on wood, gonna have to worry about any of that stuff again. But there's a whole bunch of stuff coming now that everything's kind of like really, it's been stable for a long time. Now I just want to do a bit of marketing and getting it front of mind for people and having people kind of know that it's there and it's an option, and that I think we've got some really good features for Laravel applications that really make the sort of monitoring story and all of that kind of stuff really, like, I think it really harmonizes with Laravel and the philosophies there. And Chris Fidel, who's got his new Pushing Boulders podcast, I've been listening to that and just hearing those people talking about their experiences and sort of getting their SaaSes running has kind of given me a bit more motivation to kind of kick things into gear a bit and to see if we can make something useful of this little thing.
Absolutely. Hey dude, I hate to end the party here. Tonight I am recording in my room because every other room that I have available usually is taken up. So I've got daughters having a sleepover, and then we've got, all my other kids are sleeping already. So this was the only quiet room in the house. And like, wife's like, hey, I'm ready to go to bed. So it's time. I got to run. So
all right. No worries.
Yep, absolutely. So this is what episode was this?
117.
Sorry, 117. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Episode 117. You can find show notes for this episode at northmeetsouth.audio/117. Rate us up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be great. And hit us up on Twitter at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or at North South Audio. Until next time, my friends, we will see you later.
See you.
Bye-bye.